Kale had never imagined betrayal like this. For centuries, the Vryn warriors had prided themselves on loyalty, on honor above all else. Yet as he lay sprawled on the jagged surface of Zyphora, blood dripping from a deep wound in his side, he realized the truth. Loyalty was a word his comrades spoke but did not live. They had abandoned him. The enemy had attacked without warning. And while he fought with every ounce of strength, the moment the reinforcements failed to arrive, he understood he was alone. The planet stretched endlessly around him, a barren wasteland of jagged rocks and bitter winds. But in that harshness, he felt something he had never expected. Fear. The wound burned with each breath. Every movement sent sharp pain through his muscles. Kale had faced hundreds of battles, had slain enemies twice his size, had survived situations that would have ended most lives. Yet now, in the silence of betrayal, he realized how fragile existence could be. His senses, honed over years of training, told him he would not last long if he stayed in the open. Every shadow seemed alive with predators, and every distant rumble of the terrain felt like the threat of an unseen enemy. Kale struggled to rise. Each movement was agony. The armor that had once protected him now felt like a cage, heavy and unforgiving, soaked with blood. He tried to crawl inch by inch toward a small crevice he had spotted during the fight. It was not much, a narrow crack between two enormous rocks, but it promised some cover even if temporary. With gritted teeth, he forced his body forward. The pain was relentless, but so was his will. If he died, it would not be from cowardice nor from weakness. He would not give the enemy the satisfaction. Hours passed, or was it days? Time seemed meaningless in the endless struggle for survival. Kale's mind wandered to his comrades, those who had left him behind. He remembered Commander Tyrix, a seasoned soldier who had once been his mentor. Tyrix had smiled at him during the last council meeting, a gesture Kale had interpreted as reassurance. How foolish he had been. Tyrix had made a choice, and Kale had been the price. Anger flared within him, but the wound and exhaustion soon reminded him that anger alone would not save him. Survival required focus, strategy, and perhaps a measure of luck. Luck, as it happened, was arriving in a form he had never expected. Alex Wren, a human pilot from a nearby colony, had been monitoring the area for unusual energy signatures. Humans were known for their curiosity, and Alex was no exception. He had noticed strange fluctuations on his instruments, readings that did not match any known wildlife, storm, or natural occurrence. Protocol dictated that he should report it and wait for reinforcements, but something in his instincts told him that someone, or something, was in trouble. The human knew the Vryn were powerful, but he also knew they were not invincible. If anyone needed help, it might be a chance to do something important. Alex piloted his small exploration craft carefully over Zyphora's rugged surface. The planet was unforgiving. Winds whipped at the metal hull, sand and dust scratched against the windows, and rocky outcroppings jutted like jagged teeth from the ground. Still, Alex pressed on, scanning the readings. Finally, he saw a figure lying motionless near a crevice. From a distance, it looked strange, not like any creature he had seen before. It was tall, muscular, and covered in armored plates that reflected the dim sunlight. Alex's heart raced. Whatever it was, it needed help. Landing nearby was a challenge. The terrain was uneven, rocks threatening to tip the craft with every adjustment. But Alex was skilled, and after several tense moments, he managed to set the craft down with minimal damage. Grabbing his emergency medical kit, he approached the figure cautiously. Even wounded, the alien exuded strength, but there was something fragile in his posture, something human in his desperation. Alex had faced hostile creatures before, but this was different. He saw the pain, the exhaustion, and the betrayal that had left the warrior here to die. Kale opened one eye. At first, he could barely register what he saw. A human, here alone. His instincts screamed at him to attack, to defend, to assume the worst. But the human's hands were empty, his expression calm, and there was no immediate threat. Instead, there was an offer of help. Kale's mind reeled. Vryn warriors did not accept help from humans. Humans were fragile, weak, and unpredictable, and yet he was too weak to resist. "I need aid," Kale rasped, his voice hoarse from blood and exertion. The human nodded, kneeling beside him. "I can help. You're hurt badly. I need to stabilize you before you move." Kale's pride screamed against the words, but his body was too battered to argue. Alex carefully examined the wound. It was deep, a clean strike that had pierced muscle and punctured a vital vein. The bleeding needed to be stopped immediately or Cale would not survive the night. Alex worked quickly, using the tools he carried to bandage the wound, clean the blood, and apply a temporary sealant that would slow the bleeding. Cale's alien physiology was different from anything Alex had studied, but instinct guided him. He adjusted the pressure, monitored Cale's breathing, and spoke in a calm, steady voice. "You're going to be okay," Alex said, though he could not be certain. "I'm going to get you to shelter." Cale wanted to reject the human's help. He wanted to say that he could manage on his own, that Vryn warriors did not need aid from humans, but every muscle screamed against that pride. Every breath reminded him of the weakness he could not deny. He allowed Alex to lift him, to support his weight, to carry him toward the crevice he had been crawling toward earlier. The journey was slow. Cale's injuries made every step perilous, and the terrain was treacherous. Alex moved with care, speaking quietly to keep Cale conscious and focused. "Almost there. Just a little further. You're stronger than you think." Cale's mind, clouded with pain and disbelief, began to soften. The human was not just helping. He was persistent, resourceful, and brave. In a strange alien way, Cale felt gratitude, a feeling foreign and unwelcome. He had been abandoned by those who shared his blood and history, yet here was a human, risking danger for someone who was technically an enemy. When they finally reached the crevice, Alex carefully laid Cale down. It was cramped, barely enough space for both, but it would provide shelter from the harsh winds and wandering predators. Alex worked quickly, making a temporary bed, securing the alien warrior against further injury, and offering water. Cale drank slowly, every swallow painful but necessary. Hours passed in silence. Cale rested, his body finally given a chance to recover, even partially. He could hear the human moving around, preparing simple tools to monitor him through the night. Alex did not speak much, but his presence was constant. Cale realized for the first time that survival was not only about strength and combat. It was about trust, collaboration, and recognizing that even the unexpected could be an ally. When night fell, Zephora's twin moons cast pale light over the crevice. Shadows stretched across the jagged rocks, and strange creatures moved in the distance, their eyes glinting like embers. Cale felt his body weaken again, but he also felt a flicker of hope. He was alive not because of his own prowess, but because of a human who saw value in life, in saving another being even when there was no personal gain. Cale's thoughts drifted back to his people, the empire he had served so faithfully. For the first time, he questioned the blind loyalty he had given, the unquestioned obedience that had led to betrayal. Perhaps strength was not only about combat or survival. Perhaps it was also about choice, the courage to act rightly even when the world expected you not to. In the quiet of the crevice, Cale and Alex shared an unspoken understanding. Different species, different worlds, different histories, yet a shared moment of humanity, something Cale had never known he needed. The night passed slowly, but Cale's body healed a little, and his mind began to open to possibilities he had never considered. By dawn, Zephora's harsh light revealed a wounded but recovering warrior, and a human who had risked much to ensure life prevailed over death. The bond formed in those hours, fragile yet undeniable, marked the beginning of a journey neither could have foreseen. Cale, once abandoned and alone, now had a lifeline. Alex, guided by instinct and courage, had found a purpose greater than protocol or fear. The world outside the crevice was still dangerous, filled with threats and uncertainties. But for the first time, Cale felt a measure of hope, a sense that survival was possible and perhaps something more. He was no longer entirely alone, and somewhere deep inside, a small, almost imperceptible thought began to take root. Maybe humans were not so fragile after all. The morning light on Zephora was harsh and unrelenting. Jagged rocks cast long, sharp shadows, and the wind carried a biting chill that cut through even the thickest armor. Cale rose slowly from the small crevice, wincing as his muscles protested. The wound in his side still throbbed, a reminder of his near death, but he had survived the night. That was enough for now. Alex was already at work, checking the supplies they had salvaged from his craft. His movements were methodical, efficient, and careful. He glanced up when Cale stirred, nodding. "Morning. How are you feeling?" Cale clenched his jaw. "I will survive." His voice was hoarse, but there was determination beneath it. Pride, though battered, still held sway. "And you? You risked much to save me." Alex shrugged lightly. "I've seen worse. I've survived worse. Besides, someone needed to help." He offered Kale a simple ration of food and water. The alien stared at it warily, unused to accepting such gifts. Slowly he took them, nodding once. It was a small act, but a crucial one. They set out from the crevice, Kale leaning on Alex for support. Every step was painful yet necessary. The landscape was unpredictable. Rocky outcroppings gave way to narrow cliffs, and small, sharp stones cut into their feet as they trudged forward. Their goal was simple: reach the human colony safely. Beyond that, Kale had no plans, no guidance. Trusting a human was foreign to him, yet Alex's steady presence offered a measure of security he had not felt in years. As they moved, Kyle studied the human quietly. Alex was smaller, weaker in physical strength, yet his mind seemed alert, quick and clever. Every obstacle, every dangerous slope was assessed and overcome with ingenuity rather than brute force. Kyle felt something strange: admiration. Humans were adaptable, unpredictable, and far stronger than their appearance suggested. His own people would have dismissed Alex as insignificant. Kale realized how narrow his thinking had been. Hours passed with little conversation. Alex occasionally asked questions, simple and direct. "How did you get here? What happened to your comrades?" Kale gave brief answers, not out of rudeness, but because trust was still fragile. Yet as they navigated Zyphora's treacherous terrain, Alex's calm and patience began to wear down Kale's defenses. Suddenly, a low growl echoed from a nearby ridge. Kyle froze. His instincts screamed danger. Alex noticed and immediately crouched beside him, scanning the area. From the shadows, two creatures emerged. They were tall, thin, with elongated limbs and glowing eyes that reflected the sunlight. Zyphora's wildlife was known for its unpredictability, and these predators looked hungry. Kale instinctively moved forward, placing himself between the creatures and Alex. His body remembered combat routines even in weakness. He drew a short blade from his belt, the edges gleaming. Alex, unarmed, did not panic. He scanned the creatures, noting their movements, and picked up a nearby rock, preparing to throw if necessary. The creatures lunged. Kale slashed and struck, his movement sharp despite pain. One creature fell, but the second continued its advance. Alex threw the rock, hitting it on the side of the head. The creature staggered, giving Kale the opening to end the threat. After a tense silence, Kale exhaled heavily. "You are not as helpless as I assumed," he admitted, voice rough but tinged with respect. Alex smiled faintly. "And you're stronger than you let on." That moment marked a subtle shift. Danger had forced cooperation, and Kale could no longer deny the human's resourcefulness. They continued, moving cautiously, but with a growing rhythm of teamwork. Alex navigated, Kale protected, and slowly their trust deepened. As they walked, Kale shared fragments of his past. He spoke of his homeworld, of the Vryn Empire, of battles fought and won, and of the loyalty that had been demanded of him. Alex listened carefully, never judging, simply absorbing the stories. It was strange for Kale to speak so openly, yet he found relief in the act of sharing. Humans, he realized, had a patience he had never known among his own kind. Evening approached, and the terrain grew more perilous. A narrow canyon blocked their path, with jagged cliffs on either side, and a river of molten rock flowing below. The only way forward was a narrow ledge that hugged the cliff face. Kale's injuries made the climb slow, each step deliberate. Alex followed, offering hands and support when needed. Halfway across, a tremor shook the ground. Small rocks tumbled into the molten river below, and the ledge quivered. Kale's heart raced. One misstep and they could both fall. Alex moved quickly, assessing the ledge and calculating the safest path. "Trust me," he said simply, extending a hand. Kale hesitated, pride and instinct warring with necessity. Finally, he placed his hand in Alex's. Together they moved step by careful step. The tremor subsided and they reached the other side safely. Kale's chest heaved, not from exertion alone, but from the realization that he had relied on a human, and survived. Night fell once again, and they found a small overhang to rest. Alex built a simple fire, its warmth and light offering comfort against Zyphora's cold and dark. Kale watched the flames, thinking of the journey so far. He had been abandoned by his own, left to die on a hostile planet. Yet here he was, alive because a human had chosen to help him. You didn't have to help me, Kale said quietly, breaking the silence. Alex shook his head. I don't leave people behind. Doesn't matter who they are. You would do the same, I think. Kyle considered this. He had fought for honor, for loyalty, for victory. But he had never considered that courage could be shown simply by helping someone in need. It was a lesson he would not forget. The fire crackled, and Kale found himself speaking more freely than before. He spoke of battles, of strategy, of the pride and failures of his people. Alex listened, offering observations and questions, never interrupting, never judging. It was strange, this human, who seemed so ordinary yet was teaching him far more than any training session or battlefield could. Sleep came fitfully. Kale dreamed of the battle that had nearly killed him, of his comrades fleeing, of the alien warriors he had once respected turning their backs. In the dream he was falling endlessly, until a hand, human, warm and steady, caught him, holding him against the darkness. He woke with a start, realizing Alex was still there, quietly monitoring him. Morning brought more challenges. Zyphora's storms were unpredictable, sudden and violent. Winds whipped at them as they climbed a steep ridge, rain and hail making each step treacherous. Kale's injuries made progress slow, but Alex's ingenuity kept him safe. He fashioned temporary grips from the rocks, created shelter from debris, and used his knowledge of the environment to anticipate dangers. By midday, they reached a plateau overlooking a wide valley. From this height, Kale could see the distant structures of a human colony, small but unmistakable. Relief surged through him. They were close. Yet even as hope grew, Kale remained cautious. Danger had not ended. Zyphora's wildlife, rogue patrols of enemies, and the sheer unpredictability of the planet meant they could not let their guard down. Alex noticed the tension. Almost there, he said. We'll make it, I promise. Kale nodded, not speaking, but he allowed himself to believe the words. The journey had tested them both, had forced cooperation, courage, and trust. Kale's perception of humans had shifted. They were not weak or fragile. They were clever, resilient, and capable of bravery that rivaled even the finest Vryn warriors. As they descended toward the valley, movement caught Kyle's eye. A small group of hostile creatures was approaching, drawn by their presence. Kyle instinctively readied his blade. Alex picked up a nearby branch, steadying himself. Kale's movements were precise, defensive, while Alex's were clever, aimed at creating distractions and openings. Together they fought side by side until the creatures fled. Kyle exhaled, heart pounding. You fight well for a human, he said, a small grin breaking his usual stern expression. Alex laughed lightly. You're not so bad yourself. I didn't think I'd see a Vryn smile today. The human colony lay ahead, a small cluster of buildings, landing pads, and equipment. It was not grand, but it represented safety, civilization, and hope. Kyle's steps quickened despite the pain, driven by a mixture of relief and anticipation. They had survived Zyphora's dangers together. They had learned to trust one another. And now they were close to safety. As they approached, Kale realized something profound. Loyalty and honor were not limited to one species, one planet, or one culture. Courage was not measured by strength alone, but by the willingness to act rightly, even when the cost was high. And humans, he thought, were more than capable of demonstrating both. He glanced at Alex, who returned the look with a nod. They had come far, survived much, and forged a bond neither had expected. The journey was far from over, but Kale knew one thing with certainty. He would not face the next challenge alone. Not ever again. The valley stretched out below, dotted with the small structures of the human colony. Alex guided Kale carefully through the rocky terrain, every step measured. Kale's injuries were improving, though he still leaned on Alex for support. The alien warrior's mind was racing with thoughts of his own people. The Vryn Empire, proud and ruthless, would not forgive his survival easily, nor would they ignore the humans. Kale had spent his life following orders without question. He had believed in loyalty above all else. Now he understood that loyalty without judgment could be deadly. He had been abandoned, and yet here he was, saved by someone he had considered weaker, less capable. The realization filled him with conflicting emotions: gratitude, disbelief, and a new sense of purpose. As they approached the outskirts of the colony, a sudden flash in the distance caught Kale's attention. Through a narrow pass, a group of Vryn patrol ships descended, scanning the area. Kale stiffened. The Empire had tracked him. He could feel their intent, capture or kill. He glanced at Alex, whose eyes followed his gaze. "They're here," Kyle said quietly. "They won't stop," Alex's jaw tightened. "We won't let them get to the colony. We can warn them, prepare defenses, and if we have to, fight." Kale nodded, feeling a surge of determination. He had spent years fighting for the Empire, but now he knew his cause was different. He would protect these humans not because they were weak or strong, but because they had shown courage, compassion, and trust. That was worth defending. They moved quickly toward the colony, Kyle using his knowledge of enemy tactics to guide them. Alex relayed warnings to the colony leaders via his communicator. Human engineers and security teams scrambled, setting up barricades, preparing energy shields, and readying weapons. Despite the imminent danger, a sense of order emerged. Humans were adaptable, capable of quick thinking under pressure, and Kale felt a growing respect for them. The first Vrin patrol arrived at the outskirts just as the colony's defenses activated. Energy barriers shimmered to life and automated turrets began scanning the skies. Kale and Alex took positions on a nearby ridge overlooking the approach. Kale's sharp eyes identified the patrol leader, a seasoned Vrin officer who had commanded the strike that had left him for dead. The sight stirred anger, but he held it in check. This was not about revenge, it was about protection. The patrol attempted to breach the perimeter, but the humans had anticipated the attack. Turrets fired energy pulses, forcing the ships to maneuver, while shields absorbed the initial strikes. Kale and Alex coordinated with the human defenders, calling out weak points and predicting enemy moves. Kale's experience in battle, combined with Alex's quick thinking and the humans' adaptability, began to turn the tide. Kale found himself moving with fluid efficiency, his body still limited by injury but guided by instinct and strategy. Alex moved beside him, directing human squads, analyzing enemy patterns and improvising defenses. Together they formed a seamless unit, alien strength and combat knowledge blending with human ingenuity and teamwork. As the battle intensified, Kyle spotted a small squad attempting to flank the colony from the rear. Without hesitation, he sprinted down the ridge, his movement swift despite his wounds. Alex followed, carrying additional energy charges to support Kale's attack. They intercepted the squad, Kale using precise strikes to disable the enemy while Alex deployed traps and energy nets. The combination was unexpected and effective. Kale felt a strange sense of pride, not in the destruction, but in the cooperation. He had always fought alone or with his kind, but this teamwork across species was something new. He realized that strength was not only measured in combat skill, but also in the ability to trust and rely on others, to combine different strengths for a greater purpose. The Vrin patrol leader realized the resistance was stronger than expected. He ordered a retreat, but Kale anticipated it, cutting off their escape and forcing them into a narrow canyon where the humans' defenses were strongest. The enemy's ships faltered, some crashing into rocky cliffs, while others were captured or disabled by coordinated human fire. When the battle finally ended, the valley was quiet, smoke rising from damaged patrol ships. Kale stood beside Alex, surveying the aftermath. The colony had suffered minor damage, but it remained intact. Humans moved through the area, helping the wounded, repairing equipment, and securing the perimeter. Kale observed their resilience and ingenuity, realizing that they had accomplished what he had once thought impossible for beings of such fragile appearance. Alex clapped Kale on the shoulder. "We did it. They won't be back for a while." Kale nodded, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and satisfaction. "You are stronger than I imagined," he admitted. "All of you humans, you are not weak." Alex smiled. "And you're stronger than I imagined too. You didn't have to help us, but you did. That counts for more than any battle." Kyle considered the words carefully. For years he had followed orders without question, fought for an empire that valued loyalty over life, honor over compassion. Now he realized that courage was not blind obedience. Courage was acting rightly when it mattered, even if it meant defying expectation. He had found that courage in a human, and in himself. In the days following the battle, Kale assisted the colony in improving defenses and training volunteers. He shared knowledge of tactics, enemy strategies, and survival skills. Humans adapted quickly, learning from him while also showing their own ingenuity. Kale marveled at how resourceful and resilient they were, how they could combine intelligence, creativity, and courage in ways that his empire rarely did. Through shared work, Kale and Alex's bond deepened. They communicated more openly, sharing stories of their respective worlds, their cultures, and their values. Kale spoke of Vryn history, battles, and traditions. Alex shared tales of human exploration, ingenuity, and the challenges faced in their colonies. Each conversation built mutual respect. Each lesson learned reinforced the idea that cooperation could achieve far more than competition or blind loyalty. One evening, as the twin moons of Zephora rose, Kale stood with Alex atop a ridge overlooking the valley. The colony below glowed softly with lights, life thriving despite the dangers. Kale's gaze drifted to the horizon, where the distant mountains marked the boundaries of the empire he once served. He knew that the Vryn would not forget his defiance, that danger still lingered, but he no longer feared it in the same way. "I used to believe loyalty was everything," Kale said quietly, breaking the silence. "But I see now. Courage and honor are more than blind obedience. True strength is knowing when to fight and when to protect and who is worth protecting." Alex nodded. "You've changed, Kyle. And I think you've taught us something too. Strength isn't just about muscle or weapons, it's about heart, choices, and trust." Kyle felt a warmth he had never known. Pride in combat was fleeting, but pride in what they had accomplished together and what they had built was lasting. He had survived betrayal, harsh worlds, and countless battles, yet this, saving and protecting life, forming an alliance across worlds, felt more meaningful than any victory he had ever known. Weeks passed, and Kale became an integral part of the colony's defenses. His presence inspired humans and aliens alike, showing that cooperation could bridge even the widest gaps of culture and species. Scouts reported no further enemy incursions for now, but Kale remained vigilant. He had learned the value of preparedness, of intelligence, and of trust, lessons that would guide him through whatever challenges lay ahead. One morning, Alex approached Kyle with a communication from the colony's council. They had a proposal. Kale could join them, stay, and help lead future defenses. He could choose to leave Zephora and return to his people, or he could remain where his skills, knowledge, and courage were appreciated. Kale considered the offer carefully. For the first time in his life, he felt that his choices mattered, that his actions had purpose beyond orders and expectation. He looked at Alex. "I will stay," he said finally. "Not because I must, but because I choose to. Here I can fight for something worthy. Here I can protect, not just obey." Alex smiled. "Welcome to the team, Kyle. You've earned it." Kyle felt a surge of determination. He was no longer the abandoned warrior, alone and betrayed. He was a protector, a teacher, an ally. He had found loyalty and honor not in blind obedience, but in choice, courage, and the unexpected strength of humans. As the suns of Zephora set, Kale stood atop a ridge with Alex at his side. Below, the colony thrived, alive with activity and hope. Kale's heart, once heavy with betrayal and doubt, now carried purpose and resolve. He had faced death, betrayal, and hardship, and yet here he was, stronger, wiser, and ready to face whatever the future held. The Vryn Empire might still pursue him, but Kale knew he was no longer alone. He had humans as allies, friends who had shown him the true meaning of courage. He had discovered that strength was not just in the body or the blade, but in the choices made, the lives protected, and the trust earned. And for the first time in his life, Kale smiled not at victory, but over something far greater: hope. The horizon was wide, the future uncertain, yet Kale felt ready. Together with Alex, he would face whatever came next, proving that unity, courage, and trust could defy even the greatest odds. Humanity and the choices it inspired had changed him.